where the graph's crossed at. Okay? Now this one is two circles. So I really don't want to solve either one for x or y because they've got squares on them. Okay? But I noticed like they both have y squared. Okay? So if I take this equation times a -1, that gives me negative x squared minus y squared equals -10. And when I add my equations, you can see that the y's cancel. Divide both sides by 3, so x squared equals 1. If you think back to get rid of the squared, you square root both sides, but when you square root both sides, you get plus or minus. So I have x equals 1 and x equals -1. So plugging a 1 in for x, I have 1 squared plus y squared equals 10. So 1 squared is 1. Subtract my 1 from both sides. So y squared equals 9. Square root both sides, and y equals plus or minus 3. So when I put a 1 in there, I got 3, and I got -3. Now I need to plug in -1. So -1 squared plus y squared equals 10. -1 squared is 1. So 1 plus y squared equals 10. Subtract your 1 from both sides. So y squared equals 9. Square root, and y equals plus or minus 3 again. So with -1, I get 3. And I get -3. So in this case, you can see there's 4 solutions. Okay? One more problem. This one's already solved for y, so let's plug it in. So now I have x squared plus, in place of y, I've got x squared plus 3, and that squared equals 9. Folding my x squared plus 3, I get x to the 4th plus 3x squared plus 3x squared plus 9, and that still equals 9. So I have x to the 4th plus 7x squared plus 9 equals 9. And when I subtract 9 from both sides, those cancel. So I have x to the 4th plus 7x squared equals 0. I have an x squared in common. So I have x squared equals 0. And if I square root, I get x equals 0. And I have x squared plus 7 equals 0. Subtracting 7 from both sides, I get x squared equals -7. Square rooting, x equals plus or minus. Remember, the negative comes out as I, and the square root is 7. So when x equals 0, I get y equals 0 squared plus 3. So y equals 3. So that solution is 0, 3. Okay? When x equals I square root to 7. Now make sure your problem asks for all solutions, because if it just asks for real solutions, this one's imaginary. But y equals I square root to 7 squared plus 3. And that's not something we can graph. I square root to 7. Okay? So this would not be a solution that we would include because we're looking at ones that are real. So our only answer here would be 0, 3. And that ends the lecture for 5.4.